Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Om Ajnana Timarandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Trinadapi Sunichena Toror Iva Sahishnuna Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatir Anyata. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, at this point in Krishna Lila, we are still in Vrindavan, and at this point, Krishna is about 7 years old. This first episode is called That is the Way of Begging. The morning passed, and the cowherder boys were very hungry because they had not eaten breakfast. Immediately they approached Krishna and Balaram, saying, "Oh, dear Krishna and Balaram, you are both all-powerful, for you can kill many, many demons. But today we are much afflicted with hunger, and this is disturbing us. So please arrange for something that will mitigate our hunger." Requested in this way by their friends, Krishna and Balaram decided to immediately show compassion on certain wives of Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices. These wives were great devotees of Krishna, and so Krishna took this opportunity to bless them. "My dear friends, please go to the house of the Brahmanas who are nearby, for they are now engaged in performing Vedic sacrifices known as Angirasa, for they desire elevation to the heavenly planets. So you should all go and see them." But then Lord Krishna warned his cowherder boyfriends, "Please understand, these Brahmanas are not Vaishnavas. They cannot even chant our names, Krishna and Balaram. They are very busy in chanting the Vedic hymns, although the purpose of Vedic knowledge is to find me. But because they are not attracted by the names of Krishna and Balaram, you had better not ask them for anything in my name. Better you ask for some charity in the name of Balaram." Charity is generally given to high-class Brahmanas, but Krishna and Balaram did not appear in a Brahmana family. Balaram was known as the son of Vasudeva, a Kshatriya, and Krishna was known in Vrindavan as the son of Nanda Maharaj, who was a Vaishya. So neither belonged to the Brahmana community. Therefore, Krishna considered that the Brahmanas engaged in performing sacrifices might not be induced to give charity to a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. Then Krishna said, "But at least if you utter the name of Balaram, they may prefer to give in charity to a Kshatriya rather than to me, because I am only a Vaishya." Being thus ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the boys went to the Brahmanas and began to ask for some charity. They approached them with folded hands, falling down on the ground, offering respect. "O earthly gods, kindly hear us, for we are ordered by Lord Krishna and Balaram. We hope that you know them both very well, and we wish you all good fortune. Nearby, Krishna and Balaram are tending cows, and we have accompanied them. We have come to ask for some food from you. You are all Brahmanas and knowers of religious principles. And if you think that you should give us charity, then kindly give us some food, and we shall eat along with Krishna and Balaram. You are the most respectable Brahmanas within human society, and you are expected to know all the principles of religious procedure." Although the cowherder boys were village boys and were not expected to be learned in all the Vedic principles of religious ritual, the cowherder boys hinted that because of their association with Krishna and Balaram, they knew all those principles. By addressing the Brahmanas as knowers of all religious principles, the cowherder boys expressed the point of view that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balaram, were asking for food, the Brahmanas should immediately deliver some without hesitation, because it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, "Yagyartar karmano nyatra, loko yan karma bandhana, tad artang karma kaunteya, Mukta Sangha Samachara. One should perform yajna, sacrifice, only for the satisfaction of Vishnu, and Krishna is the original Vishnu. The boys continued addressing the Brahmanas. Lord Vishnu as Krishna and Balaram is standing and waiting, and so you should immediately deliver whatever food you have in your stock. The cowherder boys also explained to the Brahmanas that when food is to be accepted and when it is not to be accepted. Generally, Vaishnavas, or pure devotees of the Lord, do not take part in ordinary sacrificial performances, but they know very well the ceremonies called Diksha, Pashu Sangsta, and Sautramani. As it is, one is permitted to take food after the procedure of Diksha and before the animal sacrifice, and the Sautramani, or ceremony in which liquors are also offered. Then the boys said, "We can take your food at the present stage of your ceremony, for now it is not prohibited. So surely you can deliver us some food." Although the companions of Krishna and Balaram were simple cowherder boys, they were in a position to dictate even to high-class Brahmanas engaged in Vedic rituals of sacrifice. But such smarta Brahmanas, who were simply sacrificial-minded, could not understand the dictation of the transcendental devotees of the Lord. Why, they could not even appreciate the begging of the Supreme Lords, Krishna and Balaram. And although they heard all the arguments on behalf of Krishna and Balaram, these Brahmanas did not care, and so they refused to even reply to the boys. Despite being highly elevated in knowledge of Vedic sacrificial rites, all such non-devotee Brahmanas, although they think of themselves as very highly elevated, are actually ignorant, foolish persons. All their activities are childish because they do not know the purpose of the Vedas, as it is explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15. Vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedyo. The purpose of the Vedas is simply to understand Krishna. So, in spite of their advancement in Vedic knowledge and rituals, they could not understand Krishna, and therefore their knowledge of the Vedas was useless. It was Lord Chaitanya who gave his valuable opinion. Kiba vipra kiba nyasi sudra kene noi. Ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hoy. Although a person may not be born in a Brahmana family, if one knows Krishna or knows the science of Krishna consciousness, that person is more than a Brahmana and is quite fit to become spiritual master. There are various details to be observed in the performance of sacrifice. They are known as desha, place; kala, time; pritag dravya, the different detailed paraphernalia; mantra, hymns; tantra, scriptural evidences; agni, fire; ritvik, learned performers of sacrifice; devata, demigods; yajamana, the performer of the sacrifice; kratu, the sacrifice itself; and dharma, the various procedures. But all of these are meant for satisfying Krishna. Also, it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, Bhoktarang yagya tapasam. It is Krishna who is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices, because Krishna is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Absolute Truth, beyond the conception or mental speculation of the senses. Therefore, one of Krishna's names is Adhokshaja. Krishna is present just like an ordinary human boy. But for persons who identify themselves with the body, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. The Brahmanas were not very interested in the Brahmanas were very interested in the comforts of this material body, and they were interested in elevation to the higher planetary residences called Svargavas. They were therefore completely unable to understand the position of Krishna. So when the boys saw that the Brahmanas would not even reply to them, even with a simple yes or no, the cowherder boys became very disappointed. They then returned to Krishna and Balaram, explaining everything which had happened. After hearing their statements, Krishna smiled. He told them that they should not be sorry for being refused by the Brahmanas, because that is the way of begging. Krishna convinced them that one who is engaged in collecting or begging should not think that one will be successful everywhere. One may be successful in some places, but that should not be the cause for disappointment. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please show by your hands if everything is still good. You can hear nicely. So now we go to episode 2. Episode 2 is called, When a devotee is called by the attraction of Krishna, one does not care for bodily ties. Then Lord Krishna asked all the cowherder boys to go again, but this time to the wives of those Brahmanas engaged in sacrifices. Krishna also informed the cowherder boys that these wives were actually great devotees. Yes, they are always absorbed in thinking of me and Balaram. So you go there and you can ask for some food in my name and the name of Balaram, and I am sure that they will deliver you as much food as you desire. Thus, carrying out Krishna's order, the cowherder boys immediately went to the wives of the Brahmanas. When they came, they found the wives sitting inside a house. They were beautifully decorated with ornaments. After offering them all respectful obeisances, the boys said, "Dear mothers, please accept our humble obeisances and hear our statement. May we inform you that Lord Krishna and Balaram are nearby, and they have come here with the cows. And you may know also that we have come here under their instructions. For you see, all of us are very hungry. Therefore, we have come to you for some food. Please, give us something to eat for Krishna, Balaram, and ourselves." Immediately upon hearing this, those wives of the Brahmins became very anxious for Krishna and Balaram, and these reactions were spontaneous. They did not have to be convinced of the importance of Krishna and Balaram, for immediately upon hearing their names, they became very eager to see Krishna and Balaram. Having become advanced by thinking of Krishna constantly, These wives were performing the greatest form of mystic meditation. All the wives then became very busily engaged in filling up different pots with nice food. Due to the performance of the sacrifice, the various foods were all very palatable. And after collecting a feast, they prepared to go personally to Krishna, who is their most beloved object, exactly in the way rivers flow to the sea. For a long time, the wives had been eager to see Krishna. However, when they were preparing to leave home to go see Krishna, their husbands, fathers, sons, and relatives asked them not to go. But the wives did not comply. For the point is, when a devotee is called by the attraction of Krishna, he or she does not care for bodily ties. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We go to the next episode entitled The Wives' Vision of Krishna. The chaste women entered the forest of Vrindavan on the bank of the Yamuna, which was verdant with vegetation and newly grown vines and flowers. So you see the picture behind me. This is exactly where we are in today's class. Within that forest, they saw Krishna and Balaram engaged in tending the cows along with their very affectionate boyfriends. The wives of the Vedic Brahmanas saw Krishna with a blackish complexion, wearing a garment glittering like gold. Krishna was wearing a nice garland of forest flowers and a peacock feather on his head. And Krishna was also painted with the minerals found in Vrindavan. Krishna looked exactly like a dancing actor on a theatrical stage. The wives then saw Krishna keeping one hand on the shoulder of his friend, and in Krishna's other hand, Krishna was holding a lotus flower. Krishna's ears were decorated with lilies. Krishna wore marks of tilak, and Krishna was smiling charmingly. With their very eyes, the wives of the Brahmins saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of whom they had heard so much about. Krishna was so dear to the wives of the Vedic Brahmanas, and their minds were always absorbed in Krishna. Now they were seeing Krishna eye to eye, face to face, and Krishna entered within their hearts through their eyes. Within themselves, the wives of the Vedic Brahmanas began to embrace Krishna to their heart's content, and the distress of separation was mitigated immediately. They were just like great sages who, by their advancement of knowledge, merge into the existence of the Supreme. As the Supersoul living in everyone's heart, Lord Krishna could understand their minds. They had come to Krishna despite all the protests of their relatives, fathers, husbands, and brothers, and despite all the duties of their household affairs. They came just to see Krishna, who was their life and soul. They were actually following Krishna's instruction in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvang sarva papebhyo mokshayisyami ma shuchaha. One should surrender to Krishna, giving up all varieties of occupational and religious duties. Krishna therefore began to speak to them smiling very magnificently. Now, it should be noted in this connection that when Krishna entered into the hearts of the Brahmanas' wives, and when the Brahmanas' wives embraced Krishna within their hearts, and they felt the transcendental bliss of being merged with Krishna, the Supreme Lord Krishna still did not lose his identity, nor did the individual wives lose their identities. For the individuality of both Krishna and the wives remained, yet they felt oneness in existence. It is just as when a lover submits to one's lover without any pinch of personal consideration, that is called oneness. Lord Chaitanya has taught us this feeling of oneness in his Shikshastakam, verse number 8. Aslishyava pararatang pinashtumam adarshanan marmahatang kurotuva yata tatava dididhatu lampato mat prananatastu sa eva naparaha. Krishna may act freely, doing whatever Krishna likes, but the devotee should always be in oneness or in agreement with the desires of Krishna. That oneness was exhibited by the wives of the Vedic Brahmanas in their love for Krishna. Krishna thus welcomed the wives of the Brahmins with the following words: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now we have 2 more episodes for this class. So don't touch that dial. Stay tuned, because now we're going to go even deeper into Krishna consciousness. If you are enjoying this class, raise your hands and say, Hare Krishna. Very nice, very nice. I don't know about you, but I am already in Vrindavan today. This description by Prabhupada is too good. We are in Vrindavan. So this episode is called Conversation Between Krishna and the Yajnik Brahmana's Wives. Swagatam vo mahabhaga asyatang karavan makyin yano dradrikshaya prapta upapanam idang hiva nanu adha mai kurvanti kushala svarta darshana ahoituki avyadahitang bhaktim atma priye yata. O my dear wives of the Brahmanas, you are all very fortunate. You are all welcomed here. Now, please let me know what I can do for you. You're coming here to see me, neglecting all the restrictions and hindrances of your relatives, fathers, brothers, and husbands is actually completely befitting. One who does this actually knows one's self-interest, because rendering transcendental loving service unto me without motive or restriction is actually auspicious for the living entity. Lord Krishna herein confirms his order in Bhagavad Gita that the conditioned soul can reach the highest perfectional stage just by surrendering to him. Mam ekam sharanam vraja. And one must give up all other responsibilities. This complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most auspicious path for the conditioned soul, because the Supreme Lord is the supreme objective of love. Everyone is loving his or herself according to the advancement of one's knowledge. Ultimately, when a person comes to understand that one's self is actually the spirit soul, and that the spirit soul is nothing but part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one thus recognizes the Supreme Lord as the ultimate goal of love, and then surrenders to Krishna. This surrender is considered most auspicious for the conditioned soul. Prana buddhi manak svatma dara patya danandaya yat samparkat priya asangs tato ko nu apara priya. Our life, property, home, wife, children, house, country, society, and all paraphernalia, which are very dear to us, are simply but expansions of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Krishna is the central object of love, because Krishna is the one who gives all bliss, expanding himself in so many ways according to our different situations, whether it be bodily, mental, or spiritual. Krishna then said to the wives of the Brahmanas, "Now you can return to your homes. Engage yourselves in sacrificial activities and in the service of your husbands and household affairs, so that your husbands will be pleased with you, and the sacrifice which they have begun will be properly executed. After all, your husbands, well, you are all householders, and so without your help, how can they execute their prescribed duties?" The wives of the Brahmanas, however, replied to these teachings of Krishna, "Maibang dibo arhati baban gaditung sangsham satyang kurushva nigamang tabapadamulam prapta vayang tulasidama padavashtang keshar vidhum atilangya samasta bandhum." Dear Lord, this sort of instruction does not befit you. We know your eternal promise is that you will always protect your devotees. And now you must fulfill that promise. For anyone who comes and surrenders unto you never goes back to conditioned life of material existence. We now expect that you will fulfill your promise. We have surrendered unto your lotus feet, which are covered by tulsi leaves. So we have no desire to give up the shelter of your lotus feet and return to the company of our so-called relatives, friends, and society. And what will we do if we return home? Grinanti no napataya pitarao sutava na bratri bandhu surida kuta eva chanye tasmat bhavat prapadayo patitang mangangno nanya bhavad gatir arindama tad videhi. O Krishna, our husbands, brothers, fathers, sons, mothers, and friends, well, now they will no longer accept us at home because we have already left them. Actually, therefore, we have no shelter to return to. Therefore, please do not ask us to return home. Instead, kindly arrange for our stay under your lotus feet so that we can eternally live under your protection. Krishna then replied, "Patayo nabya suyeran pitri bratri sutadaya lokascha vo mayopeta deva api anumanvate." My dear wives of the Brahmins, rest assured that your husbands will not neglect you upon your return, so nor will your brothers, sons, or fathers refuse to accept you. Because you are my pure devotees, not only your relatives, but also people in general, as well as the demigods, will be satisfied with you. As it is said in Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuntishtati. Krishna is situated as the supersoul in everyone's heart. So, if someone becomes a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, one immediately becomes pleasing to everyone. The pure devotee of Lord Krishna is never inimical to anyone, nor can any sane person be an enemy of a pure devotee. Krishna then further said, Na pritaye nuragaya hi angasango nirnam iha tanmano mayunjana achiran mam ivapsyata sravana darshana dhyanam Ma'i bhavo nukirtanat nat tata sanikarshena pratiyata tato grihan. My dear wives of the Brahmanas, transcendental love for me does not depend upon bodily connection, but anyone whose mind is always absorbed in me will surely very soon come to me for my eternal association. And so, after being instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the wives returned home to their respective husbands. Pleased to see their wives back at home, the Brahmanas sat together with them and executed the performances of sacrifice as enjoined in the Shastras. According to Vedic principle, religious rituals must be executed by husband and wife together. And when the Brahmanas' wives returned, the sacrifice was duly and nicely executed. However, one of the wives of the Vedic Brahmins, who was forcibly checked from going to see Krishna, began to remember Krishna as she heard of Krishna's bodily features. Being completely absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, she gave up her material body, conditioned by the laws of nature. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We have one more segment. Are you ready to hear the last segment? All in favor say, Hari Bol. Jai. Very nice, very nice, very nice. So this last segment is called The Brahmana's Lament. After the departure of the Brahmana's wives, Sri Govinda and his cowherder boyfriends enjoyed the food that had been offered by them. In this way, the ever-joyful personality of Godhead exhibited his transcendental pastimes in the guise of an ordinary human being in order to attract common people to Krishna consciousness. With his words and beauty, Krishna attracted all the cowherder boys, and damsels in Vrindavan. All of them together enjoyed the pastimes of Krishna day after day. And after the return of their wives from Krishna in the forest, the Brahmanas who were engaged in performing sacrifices now began to regret their sinful activities by refusing food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the Brahmanas could finally understand their mistake. Being engaged in the performance of Vedic rituals, they had neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had appeared just like an ordinary human being who was asking for some food. The Brahmanas began to condemn themselves after seeing the staunch faith and devotion of their wives. The Brahmanas regretted very much that although their wives were elevated to the platform of pure devotional service, they themselves could not understand even a little bit of how to love and offer transcendental loving service to the Supreme Soul. They thus began to talk among themselves. Dig janma nastri vrid yattad, dig vratang, dig bahu gyatang, dig kulung, dig kriya daksham, vimukaye tu adhoksaje. To hell with our being born Brahmanas. To hell with our learning all the Vedic scriptures. To hell with our performing great sacrifices. To hell observing all the rules and regulations. To hell with our family. To hell with our expert service in performing the rituals exactly according to the description of the scriptures. To hell with it all. Why? Because we have not developed transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balaram, who are beyond the speculation of the mind, body, and senses. The learned Brahmins, expert in Vedic ritualistic performances, were properly regretful because if one does not develop Krishna consciousness, all discharge of religious duties is simply a waste of time and energy. The Brahmanas continued to talk among themselves. Nunang bhagavato maya, yoginam api mohini, yad vayang guravo mirnang, svarate mukhyamahe dvija. Oh, the external energy of Krishna is so strong. It is so strong that it can create illusion to overcome even the greatest mystic yogi. Although we expert Brahmanas are considered to be the teachers of all other sections of human society, we also have become illusioned by Krishna's external energy. Aho pasyata narinam api karishne jagad gurao duranta bhavang yo vidyan mrityu pashan grihad bidan. Now, just see how fortunate these women are, for they have so devotedly dedicated their lives to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balaram. And so they could easily do what is ordinarily so difficult. They gave up their family connections, which are just like a dark well for the continuation of material miseries. Women in general, being very simple at heart, can very easily take to Krishna consciousness. And when they develop love for Krishna, they can easily get liberation from the clutches of Maya, which is very difficult for even so-called intelligent and learned men to surpass. The Brahmanas continued speaking to themselves. Na sang dvijati sanskaro, na nivaso gurav api, na tapo natma mimangsa, na shauchang na kriya shubha. Tatapi hi utamashloke, Krishna yogeshvareshvare, bhaktir drida na chasmakam, sangskaradi batam api. According to Vedic injunction, women are generally not allowed to undergo the purificatory process of initiation by the sacred thread, nor are they allowed to live as brahmacharinis in the ashram of the spiritual master, nor are they advised to undergo strict disciplinary procedures, nor are they very expert in discussing the philosophy of self-realization. And by nature, they are not very pure, nor are they very much attached to auspicious activities. Therefore, how wonderful it is that these women have developed transcendental love for Krishna, who is the Lord of all mystics. They have surpassed all of us in firm faith and devotion unto Krishna. The Brahmana husbands were not aware that their wives had occasionally associated with some residents of Vrindavan, such as flower ladies, and so they had heard about the beauty and qualities of Krishna. The Brahmanas were astonished at their wives' loving devotion for Lord Krishna, not realizing that this devotion had developed as a result of hearing and chanting about Krishna in the association of pure devotees. Does not that remind you of something I say in every class? You see now why I stress this? Please take this as the most important lesson of today's class. Nanu svarata vimudhanam pramatanang grihe haya aho na smarayam asa gopavakyai satangati. Being too much attached to the materialistic way of life, although we Brahmanas are considered to be masters in all purificatory processes, we do not actually know what the goal of life is. For even though we were reminded of Krishna and Balaram by the cowherder boys, we disregarded them. Anyata purna kamasya kaivalyadi ashisang pate ishitavyai kim asmabir ishas yaitad vidambanam. We now think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply played a trick of mercy upon us by sending his cowherder friends to beg food from us. Otherwise, Krishna and Balaram had no need to send them. Krishna and Balaram could have satisfied the boys' hunger right there and then just by willing to do so. Hidbanyan bhajate yangsri pada sparshashyas yasakrit svatma dosha pavargena tad yachna jana mohani. If someone denies the self-sufficiency of Krishna upon hearing that Krishna was tending the cows for his so-called livelihood, or if someone doubts Krishna not being in need of the food, thinking that Krishna was actually hungry, then such a person should understand that the goddess of fortune herself is always personally engaged in the service of Krishna. In this way, the goddess of fortune can break her faulty habit of restlessness, chanchala. In the Vedic scriptures, like the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpravriksha lakshavrateshu surabir abhipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra shata sambrama sevyamanam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Krishna is always served in his abode with great respect by not only one goddess of fortune, but many thousands. Therefore, it is simply illusion for one to think that Krishna was actually begging food from the Brahmins. No, it was actually a trick to show the Brahmanas mercy by teaching them that they should accept Krishna in pure devotional service instead of engaging in ritualistic ceremonies. Deshakala pritadravyam mantra tantra vijo ganyai Devata Yajamanascha Kratur Dharmascha Yanmaya. The Vedic ceremonial paraphernalia, the suitable place, the suitable time, the different grades of articles for performing the ritualistic ceremonies, the Vedic hymns, the process of sacrifice, the priest who is able to perform the sacrifice, the fire, the demigods, the performer of the sacrifice, and all the religious principles. All these are simply meant for understanding Krishna, for Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and Krishna is the Lord of all mystic yogis. Sa eva Bhagavan Sakshad Vishnur Yogeshwareshwara Jato Yudushu Ityashrana Hi api mudana vidmahe. Because Krishna has appeared as a child in the dynasty of the Yadus, we Brahmanas were so foolish that we could not understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmanas continued to lament. But on the other hand, we Brahmanas are very proud because we have such exalted wives who have developed pure transcendental service of Krishna without being shackled by our rigid opposition. Tasmai namo bhagavate Krishnaya kunta medase yanmaya mohita diyo brahmam karma vartmasu. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Krishna, under whose illusory energy, called Maya, we are absorbed in fruitive activities. Sabai na adya purusha swamaya mohitatmanam avigyatanubbhavanam shantum arhati atikramam. We Brahmanas therefore pray to Krishna to be kind enough to excuse us because we are simply captivated by Krishna's external energy. We transgress Krishna's order without knowing Krishna's transcendental glories. Thus, the Brahmanas repented for their sinful activities. Indeed, they wanted to go personally to offer obeisances unto Krishna. But being afraid of Kamsa, they could not go to Krishna and surrender unto him. In other words, it is very difficult for one to surrender fully unto the personality of Godhead without being purified by devotional service. The example of the learned Brahmins versus their pure devotee wives is vivid. The wives of the Brahmanas, because they were inspired by pure devotional service, did not care for any kind of opposition. They immediately went to Krishna. But the Brahmanas, although they had now come to know the supremacy of Krishna and were also repenting, still they were afraid of King Kamsa because they were too much addicted to fruitive activities. We have finished this wonderful, wonderful episode. I will now recite for your transcendental insurance the prayers to Lord Nrsimha, and then I will bless each and every one of you, provided you turn on your camera and I see you face to face, just like the wives of the Brahmins saw Krishna face to face and embraced him in their hearts. Please turn on your camera, my dear loving students. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Dayane Hiranyakashipu Vaksha Shilatankanakadaye Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha Yato Yami Tato Nrsimha Bahi Nrsimha, Hridaya Nrsimha, Nrsimhamadin Sharanang Prapadya. Nrsimhamadin Sharanang Prapadye. Nrsimhamadin Sharanang Prapadye. Tavakara Kamalavare Nakamadbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranya Kashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Nrsimha Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadish Jai Jagadish Jai Jagadisha Hare Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Om Tat Sat.